YouTubers, space sleuths and alien detectives, ET archaeologists and viewers. Welcome to ArtAlien TV. Another update on some of the finds that I've found recently. Do come along to Mars magazine if you haven't already. You get a free app here which will give you loads of really cool freeware and stuff like that. You can use it on your mobile device and on your computer. That's going to give you loads and loads of stuff and all the links you're going to need. So if you want to become a space sleuth and do sort of Mars memes and alien memes, that kind of thing, this meme machine will do it because it gives you all the links you need to all the image pages and that kind of thing. I get most of my images from here, which is the Mars Science Laboratory page. What I tend to do is go through all the mass cam images here. There are other ways of getting these images, but this is the one I use. I go through these every day, and it will also give you lots of other links to all the other planets and anything you want. So check that out. Right, let's crack on with it. This is a compilation video, so this may take a bit of time. I'm going to go through all the finds that I found in the last month or so, and most of them are in the same sort of area, all within about 100 meters of each other. And let's crack straight on with it. I will provide links to the main pages and some of the individual images as well. If there's any that I haven't provided links for, feel free to ask and I will give them to you. When you're doing a compilation video like this, it's very difficult to get all the links sorted out, and it's quite complicated. But I can do that if you require them. Okay. So right, this is all the Mars memes that I've done recently. Now, most of these are already published on Mars magazine, so you can go on there, and if you want to download any of these, you can just click on the image and save it to your computer. In fact, I do encourage that in case I lose some of these for whatever reason. Maybe the computer might crash or something like that, or die. So if you see any of these on Mars magazine, feel free to download them. I do tend to put up the high quality JPEGs of a lot of them. They're really good sharp quality, so I do encourage that. So let's crack on with it. Right, the most recent one I found is what looks to be another Mars ape. Now this is one I spotted, I think, last night when I was going through Sol 703. What I've been doing recently is going through all the older Sols and making Gigapans with all the images and stitching them all together, which makes it a lot easier to search. And I found this. I couldn't really decide whether this was a gorilla or a baboon, so what I did is I did this and put a little baboon image in there to compare the shape. It does have a similar brow ridge shape and quite a long snout and similar sort of nose area, not the same. I initially thought it was more like this here, more like a gorilla, but actually it's not. The top of the head is similar, it's got that same curve to it there, like here, but the nasal area isn't quite the same, the nose is lower down. I mean, I have found lots of ape skulls in the area, and some look more like chimpanzees, some look more like gorillas, and some look more like baboons, and some look like neither or either. So, of course, on another planet, there may be lots of different types of creature which are kind of hybrid creatures or whatever. We don't really know that yet. This is what I'm trying to establish by looking at these images. A lot of people think they're just rocks, but they are not. There are skulls and statues and things strewn all over the place. Here's another very recent find. A bit hard to make out, this one. I'm going to put a little comparison image in there just to make it easier. This there, okay. And it looks like some kind of reptilian skull that still has, and if you look at the raw image, let your eyes adjust to the raw image. If I zoom in, you can see an eye in there. You can actually see a pupil just there. Okay, let your eye adjust, and you can see that one. Okay, I've highlighted it here a bit. I've brightened it right up, added a bit of contrast, but I really haven't done much to that. You can see that that's not much different. It's just much brighter and a bit bluer. You can see teeth detail down here. Jaw detail, nose detail. The back of the head is kind of very bony and almost like horns sticking out, not quite. But it looks like a dragon. What else can I say? Uh, yeah. I looked through quite a few dragon images and I couldn't find one to match, but that's the nearest one I could find. Maybe some of you out there might be able to find some better ones. I mean, dragons are mythical creatures, but they may well have been leftovers from the dinosaurs that didn't die out as quickly as all the others. We are told that all the dinosaurs kind of all died out conveniently over a couple of years. I don't believe that for 1 minute. I think some of the smaller dinosaurs would have survived for maybe hundreds of thousands of years, possibly longer, and survived in certain areas on Earth, and may have only been wiped out about 12,000 years ago when the mastodons and other giant sloth-type creatures were wiped out by a cataclysm on Earth, which is when I think the cataclysm on Mars was also. There was obviously an event in our solar system that caused massive problems and global warming and floods and everything else, and I suspect something similar happened on Mars. So there we are. That's a bit hard to get your head around that. Sometimes it's easier, actually. Let's put it in here. This is one I showed from a previous video. Let's get rid of that, we don't need that. Let's keep that up there. What I'll do is I'll quickly outline what I'm trying to get across here. You have an eye here. Right. Front of the mouth here. Some teeth. There's a tooth, what look like some teeth here. Lower jaw down here. It comes along and round. That looks like a nasal cavity there, perhaps, and there would be probably another one over here. Can't really see it. The other eye socket would be here, but we're not seeing it front on, so we're not seeing all of that. And the head kind of comes up like that and round and down. Okay, I hope that helps. Some of these images are quite vague, and a lot of them are downgraded by NASA, so you're working with sort of substandard images a lot of the time. And but they weren't that great to start with anyway. They were quite low res, what we would call low res now, and that sort of comes around like that. So there we are. Looks like a reptilian or some kind of weird dragon type creature, and it may have had a horn here. There may have been another one on the other side sticking out. Don't know. Maybe damaged. So you may be able to see things in there that I can't see. There's something there. Some little structures in the top of the head. That was interesting. There's the brow ridge there. There's the other brow ridge. There we are. And you can actually see the pupil here, this has all been darkened. There's the pupil, right there. It's actually round. I can't really, yeah, there we are. So there we are. That's it. Okay. So let's get rid of that. This is the one I just showed you. Now, I'm not sure whether this looks more like a baboon or gorilla. It's somewhere in between. The snout's a bit long for a gorilla, I would say, this bit here. And the nose seems to almost match up. This is similar to some I found recently as well. There's a nasal cavity there. You can see that? Upper maxilla. These look like teeth here. Some of them are quite large, like canine teeth. Jaw comes up here, so you can actually see the bones coming around here, where the jaw joins here. There's the jaw, bottom of the jaw there. Okay, zoom in a bit, you can just about make out some teeth here. It's vague, as most of these images are. Here's the brow ridge coming round, eye socket, and eye just here. Okay, does that make sense now? So you've got, I mean, I have studied a lot of skulls. I do have a large collection of skulls. I've been fascinated by animal skulls from a very young age. Got many books on them, of all types of creatures, and I'm quite well versed in their morphology. And I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I'm a keen amateur sort of biologist, I suppose, or anthropologist. And I was a portrait artist for many years, so I'm very familiar with human skulls and that kind of thing. And I've done many pictures of people as well as animals, like birds and other creatures as well. So it's more of a fascination than an expertise, but I think experience can give you some level of expertise at least. You don't have to have a PhD in something to be good at it. experience counts for a lot. So there we are. There was that one. So that was interesting. There's this one now. I don't know what this is. I put this up on Mars magazine the other day, and we were trying to guess. It looks a bit like a dog, but it looks kind of a bit like something else. Now you've got the eye here. Even got the dark bit in the middle there. Apologies for that. It's very, very hot here, and my mouse is kind of struggling a bit for some reason. But it's like the hottest day in the UK in about, well, since 1976. So there we are. So there's the eye. Nasal cavity here. All right. Front of the mouth. Here. Mouth coming around. There is some teeth detail, but not a lot. Lower jaw here, coming around to the jawbone, coming right round here to here, and it kind of does this. And they've got some teeth detail, kind of, which is a bit hard to make out there, and it comes up to there. Okay, back of the skull here, comes round, part of it missing probably, comes right round here, and the snout is there. Okay, and you can see the sort of nose area just there, and the eye. All right, don't know what it is. So answers below, if any of you know what you think that might be. Some people have put some pretty cool comparisons up on Mars magazine for this one. This is quite a large skull, but I would say it's about 10 inches from front to back. So that's not small. It's about the size of a dog, quite a large dog. I have found other dogs, what look like dog skulls, but this one's different. So leave a comment below if you have any ideas what you think that might be. It may not be a dog at all, maybe something very different. There's a distinct lack of canine teeth here for it to be a dog, but it may have fallen out. Or the image quality may be too low. There may be teeth here, but the image quality is kind of blurred and smudged. That may have been deliberately obfuscated, as some of these images are. So who knows about that? Let's get on with it. There's a lot to get through here. There's this one which I showed recently, which was what I call, well, I don't call it a Bigfoot. I've asked the question: is this a Bigfoot head on Mars? Now, I'm not saying that is a Bigfoot. I'm just saying it's got that funny long shape to it with a nose, mouth, eyes here and here, rather a sort of ape-like nose, but hair. This is hair, okay? This ain't no rock. Rocks don't have hair. And there it is on the ridge line. This is from Sol 776. These are all in this sort of area, about 100 meters. All these things I'm showing you now, they're all fairly close to each other. Many of them you would be able to see from the same spot. If you stood on one of the higher ridges, you'd be able to look around and see all these things, all in the same area, lying around. Some of them are half buried in the sand, like this one, and some are just lying on the surface, like skulls. And there was this one. This looks like either a statue. I think it's probably a statue, or possibly a mummified head. I'm going with statue on this one. That's purely because the top of the head, it looks like it's very flat and kind of broken off. So this is stone. Looks like it's carved. A very clear eye and quite a small nose, but it's there, and a mouth here, a nice chin, a sort of almost an egg-shaped head, but with a flat top to it. Very interesting. Not the only one in the area. The dragon I've already showed you. The helmet I've showed in another video. There was this little one here, which is very vague and blurred out, but this is a little head. Possibly a statue, don't really know. Not enough detail to tell either way. This is 646, not 642. That's the wrong number there. Okay, so if you want to look this up, look up 646. This was a really interesting one because there's two things together here. As you can see, this is an elongated head with an eye here and teeth here, nose area here. I'll put that in here a minute and hang on a minute, let's do that. Let's put it in here and I'll quickly outline what I'm trying to get across here. I mean, I thought this was fairly obvious, but it took me a while to get my head around it because it's such an elongated shape. But there are other very elongated skulls on Mars, so this is no exception. You got teeth here, right? Eye here. It's even got an eyeball, right? Nose here, and obviously the head comes right up here, and it's extremely long. And there's some interesting details around the face, like a bit of a shadow coming around there. Okay, very interesting indeed. Is that a nasal cavity? Don't know. Now, a lot of the skulls I've looked at on Mars, they don't have standard humanoid features. Some of them look very almost insectoid. Some of them look almost kind of reptilian. But many of them look humanoid, as in human features. But the noses tend to be very different. Some have very flat noses. Some have very long noses, much like humans do. I mean, we have all sorts of shapes and things like that. Nothing wrong with either, of course. We all have slightly different features. That's cool. And there's another head behind it here. You can see the mouth here, a long straight nose on this one, there. Eye socket there. You can actually see an eye there. Chin coming down, and the head is a funny shaped cranium. It comes around like that. You can see it pretty clearly. Cheekbone here. That's the nose. There we are. I mean, it doesn't conform to what you'd expect to find on Earth, but this isn't Earth, and it's not Devon Island either. As people keep saying, people are obsessed with Devon Island just because someone made a video years ago saying that it could be on Devon Island. Everyone would rather believe that than get their head around the culture shock that they're experiencing whilst looking at images like this. And it's very easy for people to dismiss this. Oh, it's not on Mars. The rovers aren't on Mars. Well, why wouldn't they be? Why wouldn't they be? They're not people on these rovers. They're robots. The robots do not need to breathe air or oxygen. So it's quite possible to send robots to anywhere in our solar system. They've been to the moon. They've been sent to. They've been to Venus. Russia sent them as well. And it's rather funny that people only say this about the recent American rover. They don't say it about the previous rovers that have been up there, like the Opportunity's been there for 14 years. And the Spirit was sent up 14 or 15 years ago as well, which died a while back. But no one ever said, no one ever mentions them. It's only that, the Curiosity rover is not on Mars. Why isn't it? Give me one good reason why it shouldn't be. We've been sending stuff up to Mars for decades now, since the 1970s. And the moon since the 1960s, early 1960s. We've been going to the moon. A lot of people say we didn't land on the moon, or we didn't actually send people to the moon. I think we did, but I do think a lot of the footage is fake, or some of it at least. Not a lot of it, but some of it. Especially some of the photographs have been doctored, and I can prove that, as I have done in many videos. So check those out. So that was interesting, that one. Let's go back. There's another one here, which I showed in a recent video of the helmet. So check out that video if you want to see that. The soldier in a helmet here. This is a skull with a helmet. What else can I say? So check that video out. There will be a link to it in the end of this video you can click on. There is another head here, which is near that soldier, which looks a bit like a cat's head with an eye and a very sort of feline looking nose here, mouth here, other eye there. A bit vague that, but I thought it was cool. There is this thing here which looks a bit like a head with a pair of glasses on. Don't ask me why, but it does. This may not be, of course. It's very vague, so I'm not going to put any money on that at all. It's a very vague image and out of focus. So, but that was interesting. Sol 635, that one. There was this, which was another statue. A bit hard to work out this initially when you look at it, because it's not looking straight at us. It's at an angle, approximately 45, 50 degrees, facing this way, okay? But if you look carefully, you've got an eye here, just here, a nose, and a little mouth, but these are small facial features, very small. They're not prominent at all. This is heavily eroded and quite pitted. It's out in the open. A lot of these things you find on ridgelines or at the bottom of ridgelines, and are quite well preserved because they're protected from the wind. But a lot of them are out in the open like this one, and are absolutely exposed, so are more eroded and harder to spot because they're often worn away. And a lot of the facial features are a little bit vague, but they are there. You can see a mouth there, okay? Let's put that in here very quickly. I'll just outline that for you. A lot of it depends on the brightness settings you have on your device as well. It really does help if you have the brightness up a bit higher. But I know a lot of us turn it down on our mobile devices to save battery and stuff like that. But there's the mouth here. Okay, it kind of comes up like that. There's a bottom lip there, top lip. There's what looks like a nose here, which is rather small, broken off by the looks of it. And there's the eye. You can see a kind of eye socket coming around like that. There's the eye. Quite dark there. And there's a sort of ridge, brown ridge there. Okay, and then obviously the forehead comes right up. Another elongated head. And this comes right round, almost like a sphinx kind of shape. And the chin comes right round to here, obviously. Like that, okay. Very interesting shape. Another... When I showed this to my wife, she said it looked like Humpty Dumpty, and I kind of agree. Very elongated, rounded, egg-shaped head. But this is heavily eroded. This nose may have come out more like this, initially. And these features may have been a lot more prominent, and it may have just wind eroded, okay? So, there was that one. I'm not going to go through all of these now. Some of these are quite vague, like this one. This was really small, in the same area, Sol 619. A small skull, and you can see teeth here, little teeth there. And you can see an eye there, and an eye here, and then sort of nasal cavity there and there. A bit vague, but it is there. And I didn't really enhance it much. I should have gone in a bit darker with this and turn the contrast up. You've got some teeth down here. Okay. Mouth there. Eye socket here. This is more insectoid looking in shape, the eye sockets. Nasal cavity there. There's the nose. Obviously the head comes right back here, elongated again. Comes down to here. So there we are. A bit vague, that one, I appreciate that, but I don't enhance these a lot, and I don't want to be accused of doctoring the images much. I just want to show them as they are with a slight enhancement next to it, because often I think if you over-enhance images, it can make them worse, and you're actually destroying important information if you do that as well. And I think it's important to let other people see things as they are, and a lot of people often spot things that I miss as well, which is great. So if you have any comments to make on any of these, please comment below. Always welcome. Now this is one of my favourites. This is a double whammy image, double trouble. You've got a head here, and this one on the left looks to be part of a statue that's broken, a head of a statue with a very clear mouth. Let's zoom in. You can actually see some quite good eye detail here. See an eye in there. The nose comes up, you've got these big nostrils, another eye here, top of their head here, and the chin. This is part of a statue, I think. And this here looks more like a mummified head. Now if you look at the raw image here, you can see how close they are together. Literally only a couple of feet apart. And maybe 1.5 feet even. And basically you've got a head here which almost looks, it kind of looks mummified to me, because if you look at the mouth detail, it's very contorted. Now this is conducive with mummification and skin and flesh drying out, and it becomes shriveled. But you've got two eyes, shut eyes here, nose, a shriveled mouth with some teeth detail. If you zoom back a bit, you can see some teeth kind of sticking through the skin there almost. Wearing a strange hat, like a lot of these things do. They're either wearing hats or helmets, some of them. Not all of them, of course. So that was cool. There is this one that looks like another statue head with a beard. This is a bit vague as well. I didn't enhance this much. You've got a nose here, you've got a big eye here, or perhaps here, don't really know. mouth here, and a big chin, which is actually looks like a beard. There are other statues with beards. Maybe wrong on this one, don't know, but just because it doesn't make immediate visual sense does not mean it is not something interesting. The whole point of these videos is to try and work out what we're looking at, and sometimes it may just be a rock. There was this, looks like a turtle or bird of some sort. Whether it's carved or fossilized, I couldn't tell you. It's hard to say either way, really. There's not really a lot of detail in it, apart from the beak and the eye. You've got a big eye there and a beak coming around. Looks a bit like an emu or something. Some kind of, it could have been a flightless bird or something like that. This is just the head and part of the neck here. There we are. I mean, it's pretty obvious even in the raw image. So that was cool. Sol 619, that one. It's a recent find. There was this one, which was really strange. And I still can't quite get my head around this. There's the raw image on the left. This is Sol 619 again. A long, elongated head shape with a head here. Now, this is really odd. I appreciate this may not be what I think it is, but if you ignore this great big long thing sticking up here and just look at this part of the image, you can see a nose, a mouth and an ear, a chin coming round, forehead. Now, I would imagine, in reality, if this was an actual head, that the skull would only come to here. Even an elongated head would just go to there. That looks more realistic to me. Okay? So, whether this thing on top is a representation of the skull or some kind of headgear, I would say the latter. Some kind of headgear. And in fact, you can see some structure to it here. I'm not really sure. I don't know. Answers on the postcard there. What do you think on that? I don't know. You can see an eye here, nose, mouth. There's some kind of ear there, chin coming round, jaw, head coming up. Yeah, there we are. I mean, very vague and quite small. This one, 619 again. Sol 619. Well worth looking at 619. There's lots of stuff in there. Well, I mean, I'm starting to go back now into ones that I've already published. There was this one, which is also recent. Right, now we have two images here. One of them's from the moon, and one of them's from Mars. And I thought they were similar. They're not the same, but they're similar. Why would there be a skull on the moon? Well, the moon may well be, or may have been inhabited and probably had an atmosphere and water and lakes and all sorts of things on it a very, very long time ago. And lots of scientists are saying that now. At least they're admitting to water and perhaps an atmosphere. They haven't gone quite as far as saying there may have been people on it, but some are. Not all scientists agree, of course. They're always split straight down the middle. Whether that's Mars or moon people, you know. But they are very similar. This one is from Sol 588, so that's going quite a long way back. And this is on top of a mound, a big mound, and is really large. These are both large. These are giant sized. I would say this skull here, you've got nose here. You can see the teeth, where the teeth would have been. A lot of them have fallen out. It's getting in a bit closer. It's in quite good detail. It's quite close to the Rover, and is very large, but it's fossilized. Whether this was mummified or fossilized, I'm not really sure what's happened to it here, but it's kind of, I think if things mummify for long enough in the right low oxygen conditions, they do kind of turn to stone eventually. I don't know how that works exactly, but they would probably mineralize eventually, like we have here. And you've got where the teeth would have been here, okay? Nose here, eye here, and an eye here, okay? And there's even some pupil detail in there as well, which is absolutely insane. Insane detail. It shouldn't really be there. But of course the conditions on Mars are very different to Earth. But when there's no oxygen, of course, or very little atmosphere like there is on the moon, things would preserve for many millions of years. Unless you went up and kicked it, and then it would probably disintegrate. But you have another one here. It has the same shaped nose here, similar kind of brow eye sockets there, similar sort of shape. Similar mouth detail with some possible teeth here. I don't know if you can see me drawing on there. It's probably... Let's do it in white. But the similarities are uncanny. And these are on 2 different planetary bodies, okay? One on Mars, one on the Moon. Very, very similar. Very similar indeed, and in fact about the same size. Now the crazy thing about this moon skull image, I've done a video on this, so I'll put a link to it at the end of this video. The weird thing about this was right next to one of the astronauts. They were doing a little survey in this next to this rock here, and taking samples, and this was just lying next to the rock, and they kind of ignored it, didn't even spot it. But of course they weren't trained in that kind of anthropological or archaeological kind of visualization at all. So that wasn't part of their remit. They were just there to take rock samples and soil samples and jump around a bit and then get back on the LEM and come back. If they ever did walk on the surface, that is. But there were plenty of images of the surface. So there we are. That's on the Moon and that's on Mars. Very similar indeed. Heavily encrusted and fossilized skulls. There we are. Interesting, okay? Very interesting indeed. What does that mean? So that's pretty much it for this video. There was this one, I don't know if I've showed this before. There was another ape skull here. Looks like a gorilla. Pretty clear. It's a bit vague in the raw image, and it actually helps if you zoom back a bit like that. You can actually see it better there, the nose and the mouth and the eyes. It's still a bit vague, but the lighting was a bit odd on this, and it's kind of in shadow and a bit hard to work out. If I went too bright, you couldn't see it either. Went too dark, couldn't really see it. So some of them are quite hard to pull out the details, depending on the light angles and the amount of gamma in the image. You may not have seen that. That's a recent find. This was Sol 530. That's going right back as well by the Dingo Gap area. Looks like a trainer or shoe with interesting details in it here. The sole details around here are interesting shapes. You've got inner part of the shoe there. What even looked like kind of laces coming across here. Absolutely insane. I mean, this may be a carved artifact, I don't know, but to me it looks like a shoe or trainer. So some of you may have not seen that. That's about it really. I mean, you can see the rest of these things in recent videos. They're all in recent compilation videos I've done. I've been going back over a lot of these older images, and there's that helmet, which is very vague, but it looks like a helmet with some kind of thing sticking up here, and some helmet details around here, like a nose guard and forehead, eye, and a sort of mouth there. I don't know what that is. It looks like a helmet, another helmet. So there are skulls, there are fossils, there are broken statues, there are... This one was cool. This is on the same mound as that big skull was that I just showed you, that is similar to the one on the Moon. Sol 588. In fact, this is only about 6 feet away from it. Okay? A statue that looks a bit like John Hurt. With an ear, and chin here, mouth. It's a bit vague, but it's very close to this thing, which I just showed you. Sol 588. This is further over to the left of 588. And if you go over to the right of this, in 588, you get to John Hurt. Okay? Sounds crazy, I know, but they're there. Some of these things are statues, some of them are skulls. Here's that one I published recently, what I've called the Stone Temple Pilot. It's basically a mummified head inside a big helmet, which looks a bit like a space helmet, so I've called it a Mars astronaut. May not be, but that's what it looks like. And there are many others in the area, so don't rule it out. There are simply too many of these things. There's this insect, which I found the other day, or something similar, some kind of dead critter. I may be completely off the mark here, don't know what it is really, but it seems to have limbs sticking out here, and kind of horns sticking out there. Is that a head? Could this be some kind of dead animal or dead insect? This is also Sol 646, not 42. That's wrong, that number. That's nearer this thing. It's also 646. So loads of crazy things, and if I've missed anything, I'll put a little clip of it in at the end. But you can see all these things in my recent videos. These are all recent finds mostly. So you may want to go through some of those to see the rest of these things. There's loads of statues in the area, statues and things like this. This is a much more recent image, 1421, but that was cool. Bottom of ridge line again. They're always, not always, but usually at the bottom of a ridge. So if you see a ridge on Mars, like we have here, here's a ridge, they're often at the bottom. This one is at the top, unusually, sticking out from behind a rock. You have what looks like a statue sticking up. Really vague, but it's there. It is there. You can see it in the raw image, but it's very dark, and the image quality is pretty bad. But it's there. It's got a head, what looks like a nose and a mouth and the eyes. But that may just be a rock coincidence, an optical illusion. So there's loads of these things lying around, and some of them are quite large. This is one of my favourites. This is quite large. There are two here, two statue heads together. Unfortunately, the one lower down here is broken, and in fact the top of the head is rolled off and is just down here. Whether you can see it in this image, I don't know. You need to watch the video to see that, but oh yeah, here we are. There's the rest of the head there, see it? You've even got some eye detail and stuff in there, but it's a bit vague. So there are two together here, and one of them looks like a grey alien. What's left of it? This one here. I've highlighted that. So there are two together, but one's broken off and the top of the head's rolled down onto the ground. This is another example of a statue that's near the bottom of a ridge, where they usually are. But occasionally, like these two images, they're at the top. But I do think a lot of these big mounds on Mars are actually burial mounds. I don't think they're just random sand dunes at all. Only that could explain the number of statues and the skulls that are clustered in these areas. But that one, yeah, that was funny. I thought he's got quite a smirk to his face, this one. So a lot of these are probably funerary kind of statues that were buried in tombs with people, and they become exposed, and some of the skulls are exposed as well as some of the artwork. That's my explanation. I could be wrong, but I have found nearly 100 of these things now, or over 100 perhaps, and they're all over the place, and they're following a distinct pattern in these mounds, or at the base of mounds, or ridges. And a lot of them look like apes, or gorillas, or chimpanzees, carvings. I mean, all manner of things, and this is only what I've found in the last few months. I mean, this is insane, the number of things I've found. So I think I'll call it a day now, because I could go on forever and ever looking at these things on Mars, because I've got so many. I mean, I could go on for hours, but I do try to keep these videos to a reasonable length, less than half an hour if I can. But sometimes they are longer, because there's a lot to show here, and I'm trying to get across how these things are related to each other, and where they are situated, either at the top of the mound or the bottom of the mound or ridge, or right out in the open, like a lot of them are. This is right out in the open, this dog-looking weird skull thing, whatever it is. I mean, this could be an aquatic creature. It may not be a land creature at all. I mean, this was a lake area, so some of these things may have been semi-aquatic or aquatic mammals or creatures, including some of the apes and lizards and stuff. So who knows at what stage they were in the area. And also with Gale Crater, when I came up with this theory when I first started doing this research years and years ago. In fact, if you go back to some of my really early videos, I did say in some of them and in the descriptions that I thought that Gale Crater would have been one of the last places where there could have been fresh water on Mars, as it's such a low crater. And animals may have gone down into the crater to drink. And of course, as the water dried out and evaporated, as the atmosphere failed, then water would have been very scarce, and they would have fought over it, and a lot of them may have been poisoned by the water as it became overly saline, perhaps, and they may have just died from liver failure as they were drinking salty water. Who knows? But a lot of these creatures may have congregated around what was left of the water in Gale Crater in some of the deepest parts, which are 4.5 kilometres down below the surface of Mars. And there may even be hot springs there now which seep out water. So they may have been there fighting over some of the remaining water, who knows? As well as there being a war or a giant cataclysm on the surface, there may have been very complex situations in Gale Crater where they were fighting over very limited resources, which could explain why there are what seem to be dead soldiers lying around, as well as all these other creatures, like gorillas and apes and things, you know. I mean, this one was one of my favourites. This is a recent one as well. This goes right back to Sol 51. This looks like a baboon or gorilla type creature behind a rock. Now the weird thing is, in this area where these rocks are, there's another one of these. I'll try and dig it up for another video. I will do an update on all the. I'll probably do another Mars Apes video, Planet of the Apes video, because there are so many of them now that I think they deserve their own compilation video, I think, as well as some of these other heads and skulls. Some of them are very vague like this, and some of them are very small, and the images are often out of focus, so, you know, you've got to squint your eyes a little bit, but they're there. They're skulls and statues and figures all over the place. Some of them seem to even have goggles like this one, okay? But there are dozens and dozens of these things, and some of them are very, very odd looking. They're not on Devon Island, as people keep saying. I mean, unless there is some kind of master kind of artist on Devon Island carving things like this. Alien statues, yeah, right, whatever. So are we supposed to believe Devon Island was some kind of alien base where you have what look like mummified astronauts kind of lying in the sand, and dead soldiers with what look like Roman helmets on, yeah, okay. Or dragons or reptiles. There aren't any reptiles on Devon Island, so that's nonsense for a start. It's also covered in snow most of the year round, and grass. When the snow melts, it's all covered in moss and grass. There is moss on some of these rocks, and in fact this may be moss growing on this rock. It may not be a Bigfoot at all. This may just be a rock that has some odd shaped organic growth on it, like I suggested in this video. So a lot of these things may be misinterpreted. Of course, I understand that. That's absolutely fine. But that's what this channel's here for, to try and work out what we're actually looking at and whether these things are actually skulls or just rocks. It's often hard to work out because the image quality isn't great a lot of the time. But persevere. If you're a researcher, if you persevere, you will find these, and you will find possibly much better examples of statues and heads than I have here. You may find one really up close if you're lucky, and with great detail. Occasionally we do get them, and not very often. They're usually sort of just a bit out of range and a bit fuzzy and blurred, but occasionally we get a close-up of something like this Mars insect, which is fairly clear on this rock, and we get a bit lucky, okay? So persevere with it, and you may, like this also, this was also very close to the Rover, but of course the camera never actually takes in focus shots, so even close-ups look fairly blurred and out of focus. But there are statues, skulls, corpses, structures everywhere, all over the surface of Mars, especially in Gale Crater. More so than anywhere, obviously, because that's where we got the most images from, but occasionally you see things like massive structures like this giant Sphinx that I found years ago. This thing's probably about the same size as the one we have in Egypt at Cairo, around the 240 feet mark. Don't know exactly because you can't really tell in this image, but it's very large. And the head on it looks a bit like Donald Trump for some reason. Only joking. It's there. It's a sphinx. It's a giant sphinx. So if we have giant sphinxes and small statues like this, some of them look Greco-Roman, a bit like the Zeus here. It's even got the same haircut, this one. See that? Look at the head. It's got the same hair. You've got to start asking questions like whether some of the ancient gods in Greek and Egyptian and ancient mythology were actually from Mars, or perhaps they worship the same gods. Perhaps some of these gods were actual real aliens that were visiting not only Earth but Mars. Perhaps they did live on Mount Olympus, which is possibly Olympus Mons on Mars. Perhaps the gods did live there. Perhaps the Greeks were right. Only pontificating here, of course. I'm not saying that's a fact. I'm just filling in some details that may not actually be linked at all. Okay, so there are plenty of statues on Mars. Some of them are quite clear. Some of these may actually just be mummified or fossilized heads, similar to what we see in Pompeii in the areas where people were destroyed by the eruption there. I mean, they've had plaster poured on them, but in a lake bed like this, you may have had sedimentary layers of silt and clays that have solidified on some of these things, so that they're not. There may be a skull in here, but it has clay stuck to it as well, and the clay's kind of baked hard and kind of turned it into almost like a statue. So there we are. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you soon.